Well, welcome once again. Welcome to our last Indigitous STEPS call. And we're so glad that you're able to join us. We hope someone will pop in for the last call. But we're gonna just do as we look back on what God is doing in the past 5 to 6 weeks, and we also want to look forward to how He's going to lead us. And we intentionally put this topic of connecting to the future. And we're very glad that we have Doug Harrison. You've noticed he's joined us at different times for the calls too, and has been a mentor and connected with different ones of you on a personal level. So we're so glad that today he gets to facilitate the session. I know I've been chatting with him, and he's really excited to just kind of guide us through as the topic of smiling at the future. So I hope you had time to read some of the materials because we're ready to jump in. So Doug, would you take it away and lead us in our time? And at the end of Doug's presentation and discussion, I'm just going to do a short closing remarks and a short challenge and kind of point you to some next steps. All right, so stay on toward the end of the call, and then we'll wrap it up with a prayer as well. All right, Doug, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Very glad to be with you all today. So yeah, I've just really appreciated working with Simon and have been tied in with Nick and Ali and others at the hack for that was at Urbana, as well as the hack that we did in October a couple of years back. It's just been good to be a part of this community. And so I get to share about something that I'm kind of passionate about tonight, and it's the future. So going to try to integrate a polling application as we go along. So without further ado, let me do a screen share here. And let's see if we get everybody kind of on the same page at this point. So I'm assuming you're seeing something called Connecting with the Future, Smiling at the Future with Doug Harrison. That's my title slide there. Nikita, can you shake your head up and down if you see that? Okay, because I see you in my view. You're the one key that I've got over there. Well, a little bit about my background. This is my sweet wife, Ruth. And we've been involved in global missions since 2004, overseas in different roles. Before that, we were working in industry. I was working in IT industry, doing things with like AS400s and OS2. This is before even Ethernet and Microsoft and Apple got going. But we were very active senders in global missions prior to that. So all 4 of our kids, we would produce prayer letters for people and lick the envelopes and stick them in the mail and get them off to the supporters that different families had. So we are just passionate about what God has been doing at the remotest parts of the earth for decades. Currently, I'm with Mission Aviation Fellowship. I'm the Director of Special Projects, which means I basically do the things that the CEO and the President want me to do. But I've had a long involvement with the technology group at MAF, and we've been involved in supplying some tech solutions to first-generation pastors all through Central Asia. Central Asia is the place where I've had my field experience. That little country kind of north and west of India is where I've been mostly involved. I've loved thinking about the future a lot. I mean, I had the privilege of going to Bible school 30, 40 years ago. And I remember that I would ask my professors all sorts of questions about how does time and the future impact what we believe about God and how God works with his creation. So that's fun that I have a chance to talk about that tonight. If you're out cruising around the internet, I have a little Bitmoji, just thought I'd share that. If you see that Bitmoji, I don't know how much that looks like me. I do wear glasses, so, just want to show that I'm up and modern with all of my emoticons and stuff like that. So now what's going to be on the screen is a set of instructions. I want everyone to get their phone or open up another session on the browser. If you can tab over and open up a browser, and we need everybody to connect to this pollev.com. if you can go to pollev.com on your phone, you're going to see that they're going to ask you to enter a poll name, and that's going to be D Harrison 147. And then there's going to be some prompts that you see on your phone or in your web browser, on your laptop or whatever you're using. And then the results of those polls are going to show up by God's grace on the screen that we're getting with my PowerPoints that we've got going here, my PowerPoint. So if everybody's at pollev.com and you've entered D Harrison 147, we're going to test this out. I've got 3 icebreaker kinds of questions, and then we'll go from there. So let's see if people have been able to get online there with pollev. Oops. Wow. We shouldn't. Are people already answering the poll? Okay.
My browser is launching, so just give me a moment.
Yeah, okay. So what is one of your favorite foods? Gosh, everybody seems to have entered one item. Anything. Okay, we have 2 anythings out there. All right. I think we're at a point of saturation there. So good job. Let's try another question here that says, if you were able to travel someplace, visit someplace in the future, someplace you've never been, where would you like to go? What place on God's globe interests you? So let's see what shows up here. So you're back on your phone. If you've never done this before, you should have a fresh question. And you have the option of deleting it and trying again, but you should only be able to answer once. So we have an Iceland, a Japan, we have a Russia, we have an Australia, we have 2 Icelands. I wonder if there's an interesting story there. That sounds good. And one of the islands out in Pacifica. So I'm not exactly sure if we can figure it out from the map, but I'm sure that's close enough. So, all right, let's try one more. I think we're all dialed into the technology here, and it all seems to be working. Let me ask you a question about this lady. Do you all know who this lady is? This is the Mona Lisa, which is in the Louvre in Paris back in 1503. Leonardo da Vinci painted this thing. And there has been a famous debate about this lady for years and years and years. And that's the question is she smiling or not? Now, I wonder if the debate is so vivid is because in different cultures, we would interpret the facial expressions differently one from another. So let's take one more poll. And do you think the Mona Lisa is smiling or no? And we'll see. These are all anonymous, so there's no record being kept. There's no right or wrong answer here. But it looks like the yeses outrank the no's by about 3-1. So anyway, that's just kind of fun to see how different people view the Mona Lisa and see what's going on there. So, all right, I think we're all in with the polling. So now on to our topic for session 6. There'll be some more polling as we come, but we've worked out the kinks in that. So what is time and what is the future? Beliefs and thoughts about and assumptions about time really saturate the culture we live in. I often think that at times we ought to have a theology of time because it so richly can impact the convictions we have about God. When we ask the question, is God good? And if God is good, why is there human suffering? So often those are in the context of if God knew something was going to happen, why didn't he do anything to stop it? Because we inject this idea of time into these questions. Also the whole free will of mankind or, predestination, the amount of order that God brings into that. It's all saturated in the assumptions and convictions and beliefs and the way we've been taught in our cultures about time. So I think the idea of connecting with the future is really important. One of my favorite quotes is by Albert Einstein, and he said, the only reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. You know, we can have a logical order to the events of our day, but without some chronos, without some time injected in there for us to recalibrate and rethink through some things, it would be quite a chaotic world. I wonder if at times that, you know, God has created time to give our obedience a chance to grow and mature and season day after day. Here's another example of a very famous tale, Lord of the Rings. You know, Frodo says, I wish it need not have happened in my time, the burden of the ring. Gandalf replies, so do I, and so do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. So in a popular, more science fiction culture, I don't know if you've seen the movie Inception, but it plays games with the principle of time, even down to the cliffhanger ending when the top is spinning on the table. We have a magazine that most of you are probably aware of. It's been produced since 1923 called Time. So again, this idea of the future is everywhere we turn, and we're getting messages all the time from media and other, social media and traditional news. So who made up this idea of the future, and do you even believe that you'll have a future? My conviction is that, time is God's idea. It's one of the elements that he uses in the character formation of his people. Take a look at 1 Peter here, chapter 1, verse 10 to 12. And I'll put this slide deck on the Slack channel, so no problem. It says, as to this salvation, the prophets who prophesied of the grace that would come to be made known, careful search and inquiries, seeking to know what person or time the Spirit of Christ within them was indicating as he predicted the sufferings of Christ and the glories to follow. It was revealed to them that they were serving not themselves, but you in these things which have now been announced to you through those who preach the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven, things into which angels long to look. So here's God using this principle of time to help Old Testament prophets reconcile that they were aching to know the time of the Christ, when the Christ would be born. And God said, hang on, it's up to you to document what I'm telling you to document and write down what I'm asking you to write down. But what you're doing today is actually going to serve somebody else later, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 1,000 years from now. But I think it's very interesting that God uses time as an element in the character formation of his people. It's even something that the angels wonder at and look at and wonder, what is God up to? So there's quite a bit of mystery in all of this. So stepping into time in the future is a bit like stepping into the hero's journey. I don't know if you are aware of this. I had it included in the email that went out on Friday. But nearly every good story written in cultures around the world is made up of something that an academic named what's his name, Caldwell or something like that, wrote The Hero's Journey. And that's at the top, you have the status quo. Life as usual, one day very like another day. Suddenly there's a call to adventure as you move through the sequence of events. The hero may refuse the call. Remember, Frodo was like, I don't think this is for me. He may choose to go, the hero may choose to go or not. The hero rarely goes alone. There's either a mentor like Gandalf, or there's other partners on the journey like Samwise. And so as we move into the hero's journey, we see that the way these threads tend to work together, there's a threshold you cross, kind of a point of no return. Maybe committing to live into the future is like that threshold, that tomorrow's coming, there's nothing I can do to stop it. When I wake up each morning, there's a threshold for me to enter the new day. That day may be full of tests and allies and enemies. And then in the classical way of telling the story, using the hero's journey, there is some big ordeal that the hero has to overcome. The hero may even die, and or be resurrected. And so this is kind of a sequence where you lean into something that seems bigger than you can handle, and what comes out of it is the reward or seizing the sword or learning the lesson or figuring out what the new day has for you. And then there's a road back that involves new understanding, fresh insight, maybe those prophets of old when the Lord said, hey, I'm telling you these things not for your benefit, but for the generations to come. There's a peace, there's a resolution that people experience. And I like drawing the parallel from the hero's journey, which is a mechanical tool, a mechanical way of describing storytelling, and wondering how can I use that to help me have the courage to face the ordeal or what comes in the future. I know that a few people posted a few things in Slack about what concerns them about the future. And it's very, for ages, we wrestled with political issues, economic issues, just unbridled evil and pain that is inflicted by people one to another. And so, those are real things, but I'm wondering, would God have us, what kind of attitudes or perspectives would God have us take into our day as we lean into the future so that we can bring him the glory and understand what his purposes are and how he's using time? So let's dive in a little deeper in how we feel about time. Here's another poll. This is just for fun. It's anonymous. But if would you rather, if you had the choice, would you rather visit the future, visit the past, or stay right in the present? Thank you anyway. So can you go back to your phones or the browser that you had opened up and say, what makes you, do you have a greater curiosity about the future or the past? Or would you just as soon stay put right where you are? All right, well, it looks like the future, we have some, looks like the future's been winning. It's been leading, but it's now just over half. So that's great. And that just has us a chance to sort of look inside and say, Lord, if we could do some time travel, would we take it? Yes or no? And if so, would we choose to go forward or past? And there can be all sorts of personal reasons for that, right? It's not about who's spiritual or not spiritual. I looked at some sections of scripture where there were people in history that really wanted to go back in time. In Numbers 14, we read, Israel is grumbling, why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become a prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to one another, let's choose a leader and go back. So it's not outside the human experience to even feel like I want to go back to what we had, let alone live in the present or lean into the future. So there's empathy for that in scripture, and I totally understand that. But to a great deal to me, the future is about a call to adventure. That's why I like the hero's journey and how it ties in there. 1 Corinthians 2:9, just as it is written, things which eye has not seen and ear has not heard, and which have not entered into the heart of man, all that God has prepared for those who love him. So that's just saying God has got some big stuff, maybe stuff right along the way the hero's journey would unfold, that he's prepared in time, in the future for us, and it can be rich, rich, rich with his presence in the process. So there's something I'm using to inform my thinking about the future. 1 Corinthians 2:9. Mentioned the hero's journey already. Time certainly can feel elusive. Let's look at James, where there's another reference to time. James 4:13 through 16. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So there's that sense when we read something like that, I know my reaction is, wow, will I even have it tomorrow? Well, this is just saying, watch out. But really, something to be reminded of here is this passage isn't so much, primary point isn't so much about whether you'll have a future or not. It's speaking to the arrogance we have to assume and presume on things that really are a gift of God and full of a great deal of mystery. So, but that's a great passage to help us think about what time's about and what the future's about. if you get any graduation announcements from friends or family, and maybe you put this in your own graduation announcement, Jeremiah 29:11 is very popular. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a hope and a future." And while this is explicitly a promise to Israel, there's a lot we can learn about the character of God from it. And I just think it's rich with meaning and understanding. It's tying future and hope together. All right. So now on to sort of the meat and the one of the most central passages that I draw from when it comes to thinking about biblical characters and how they approach the future. It was a very strong character, and I just want to give you some hints and see if you can think about it. This person that I want us to look at has been involved in numerous business startups. So think through scripture. Who's been involved in a bunch of startups? This person has a clear history of focusing on value creation. This person is a venture capitalist involved with import and export markets. This person is an early pioneer in the use of flex time and working in different time zones. You got any guesses? We're not going to take a poll. This person is committed to being culturally relevant and is deeply involved in social justice and concerns about justice in their community. So if you put all your thinking caps together, I hope you picked one of the most rock star characters in the Bible, and that's the Proverbs 31 woman. Just totally love the fact that God brings a woman with this talent and this strength into focus. Sorry for the amount of text there. I know that's just totally a violation of good PowerPoint etiquette, but I just want us to read some of the meaty portions of Proverbs 31, verses 13 to 31. All right, let me get a drink here. All right, she looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like a merchant ship. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is still night and gives food to her household and any portions to her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings, she plants a vineyard. Her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hands grasp the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor, and she stretches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is like fine linen and purple. Jumping to verse 24, She makes linen garments and sells them. She supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing. She smiles at the future. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Give her the product of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. I mean, this woman honors the talent and creativity that God has given her. She's industrious. She works hard. She's focused. She handles both, like the quadruple bottom line. She knows how to take care of business. She also knows how to love her neighbor. And I just think the fact that in all of that, a guiding principle for her is that she smiles at the future is so very, very important. I opened up other English translations of the same passage, and it just reinforces this, that her spirit and tone towards the future is one of gladness. She smiles at the future. That's the New American Standard, English Standard Version. She laughs at the time to come. She always faces tomorrow with a smile. She laughs without fear of the future. She can laugh at the day to come. She shall rejoice in the times to come. So I don't think this is a Barbie fakey smile at all. She's sober-minded. She knows the challenges that she experiences in her work. She knows the challenges she experiences with those that are poor and impoverished and wounded. And yet she knows that her confidence is in the Lord, and she's able to keep that smile inside to keep her going with the right motivation and the right direction. So she's she's not checking out, that's for sure. So let's move into the future. Let's move forward into something that we can look at in the New Testament and think, okay, there's sort of a role model with the Proverbs 31 woman. Let's think about some instruction that God might have for us that we could use in our leaning into the future. And that is the parable of the talents. And that's in Matthew 25, verses 14. This is all about time. There is time all over the parable of the talents here and what the future means in terms of using the gifts that God has given you. I'd like to read it as well here. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1. To each he gave according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more, but he who received 1 talent went and dug it in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I've made you 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here, I've made you 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also had received the 1 talent. The one who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gather where you had no seed. I was afraid. And so I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. So there you've got this aspect that there was a point where God seems to have left people with the talents that he had given them, and then sometime later came back. So I think this parable of the talents touches in a deep way on a spirit and tone that we can bring to what we think about when we think about the future and how to connect with it. So coming down the home stretch here, let's do a couple more quizzes. Let's go back to that idea of taking a trip, maybe to the place that you put on that map before, and you've got to pack a suitcase, all right? And we've all done this in different ways, shapes, and form. Let's just say you were going on that place. Take a look at the poll here. What's the first thing? I only gave you 3 choices. So what's the first thing of these 3 that you'd probably put in your suitcase? Your toothpaste, toothbrush. I'm kind of glad to see clean underwear catching up to the battery, the tablet and spare battery charger. This isn't the only thing you're taking. This would just be the first thing you're taking. So fun. All right. I think all of us appreciate the fact that clean underwear is important and might be the first stop we make. Let's think about a trip into the future. And you're not alone here. There's plenty of people we've grown up with that think about the future and are eager to go to infinity and beyond. Let's say that we were going to pack a suitcase to go into the future. And the question is, what would we put in that suitcase? But we're not talking about a physical suitcase, and we're not talking about things. We're thinking about like our soul as a suitcase. What would we put inside of us to carry into a journey into the future? I realize it's a big step, but let's just see what kind of word cloud we could create here. What sort of qualities or things do you think would be important in your soul to carry into the future? I think somebody wrote unconditional love. It looks like this application breaks the words apart. I love what we're creating here. I love we're creating something together. That is great. And look how it grows and changes as we think through things and consider what God is doing. All right. Oh, one more. I'm assuming that says we're looking at sound. We're looking at sound mind, or the colors are different. I'm color challenged, so maybe some of my connections aren't so great there. Well, let's move forward. Hey, would you consider re-entering those words into the Slack channel? Would you mind doing that? Because I'll do a screenshot of that word cloud, but I think it would be good for us to post those things in the Slack channel, so as we look at it in the week to come, folks can think about what they put in there, and then I'll post the word cloud. You know, and it's just important to remember, if we go back to that hero's journey, this journey into the future isn't something that you need to do alone. Heroes rarely go alone. And so, you know, Buzz Lightyear has his whole friends from Toy Story to go with him. Frodo had his people. And you and I both know that the Lord wants to go with us in an intimate relationship into the future. But just remember, it doesn't have to be a lonely place. We have community around us, and there can be parents or friends that can all be a part of that journey. So, well, I just want to share with you in closing a quick testimony of someone who has visited the future, and that person is me. And that might sound kind of strange, but I'm 58 years old, and right now, I'm living in the future that I dreamed about 40 years ago. So when I was, 20 or 15 years old, and I'd committed my life to Christ, I would wonder, just like anybody else, what's the future going to be like? And guess what? I have the answer to that, because today is one of those future days. And if the Lord is gracious, I may have another 10 years or 20 years, and I'll have some more future days. But I just want you to know that I credit a mentor of mine who really encouraged me to make it my daily prayer that the Lord would give me wisdom, discernment, understanding, and true knowledge. The very things that you folks put into that word cloud just a few minutes ago. And those things have borne fruit year after year after year. And I would have to say, I must have prayed that prayer for 10 years before suddenly my thinking patterns changed or my fears began to subside. So it's not instantaneous, but it's like the proverb, many drops make an ocean. Daily and consistently, or at least week after week, saying, Lord, the things that I believe would best suit me in my journey is wisdom, discernment, understanding, and true knowledge. Those are the things that I put into my suitcase. And I'm not perfect, and I'm still fearful, and I still can get angry at times. So by no means, perfection is future, and yet it arrives day by day. Those are the things that I'm just can give you testimony, bear fruit, and can hopefully help me hear from the Lord. You've been faithful with little, now you can be faithful with much. So the two verses I want to leave with you. One is the one that we kind of started with back at 1 Corinthians 2:9. Just as it is written, things which the eye has not seen and ear has not heard, and which have not entered into the heart of man, all that God has prepared for those who love him. And then Proverbs 23:17 and 18. Do not let your heart envy sinners, but live in the fear of the Lord always. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. So that's my sharing with today, and I'm just so very grateful for this opportunity to have done that. So we'll come back off the screen share.
Thanks, Doug. That was awesome. I think we have a little bit of time. I wonder if some of you may have some questions. You can type in Slack, or we can also just ask directly. Just unmute yourself and just ask, or make a comment, or make a share a reflection. Anyone?
Well, I'll jump in because I'm super inspired and I was taking furious notes about this. So, as someone who works in exploration, I think that it really inspired me to think about a theology of future as a basis. I just love what you were saying about First Corinthians, that he invites us to imagination. He invites us to exploration, because I feel like our culture does the opposite. Our culture invites us to certainty, and God invites us to faith in what we do not see. And I just feel like you did a brilliant job of helping people see that. And I'm still basking in it. I know that I'm going to have many more thoughts and questions, but I'm just still basking in the joy of we follow a God who doesn't invite us to certainty, but invites us to a future that we don't yet see, but that we can help uncover piece by piece.
Very cool. Thanks, Ali. Anyone else? Well, as you let it sink in, there are other opportunities for you to reflect that. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but I want to pause and just say a big thank you to Doug. It inspired me as well. A significant reminder that our future is in God's hands. I love the way you said, heroes rarely go alone. And, it's again a reflection. I think about what you guys have committed to and what you've chosen to do over this past 5-6 weeks, and just being part of this tells me that you care about the future. You care about what God thinks about the future and what he holds as a future, and you realize that you can go into it alone. And once again, I want to just affirm you that the fact that you are part of this community, it's a significant faith step. Those of you who are on this call and those of you who are watching the video. And we want to give you some tangible next steps and that you can consider, and to challenge you to take that step with each other, not by yourself. So thanks again, Doug. I want to just briefly transit to, you follow me on the slides. I will just show you a couple of things that for you to consider. Let's see, there you go here. All right, you should see my screen. Thumbs up if you see it. Awesome. All right. So I think as we've begun, we've talked about what your calling as a technologist, as a person that's studying digital, or a ministry or marketplace person, whatever your capacity. We know that this is your step, in discovering God's story in your life. And we've explained to you that Indigitous is a space where you, no matter what is expression in different cities or different countries, it is a global community engaging with ideas and each other to advance God's kingdom to innovation. Especially today, as you think about that, seeing in the future, we can have some information right now, but we got to work with what we have with each other as we move forward into that. But there are so much opportunities to explore, especially for fulfilling God's mission. It is a community because we already are reminded we can't go at it alone. And there are opportunities in your city you haven't found people just like you who are like-minded and like-hearted to dream together and to work and build things together. So if you go to indigitous.org, you can already begin to discover existing movements or get-togethers or meetups or even hackathons that you can participate. If there isn't one, this is where a simple, or maybe a big step for you, to consider is how can you be part of helping launch or initiate something. And I would say as a start gathering with a few others. Maybe do a meetup, and we have resources, and I'll put some in the Slack link for you to consider. But why don't you pray about gathering someone else just like you and a few others that can pray? God, would you use us to help catalyze or mobilize a local movement, a local chapter of faith people, faithful people who are in digital and technology who want to do God's mission, right? So, and one tangible expression of that is consider in October our Indigitous hashtag is a global missional hackathon. And some of you may have heard of it or you participated in Hack for Missions. This is kind of the global network version of it, and not just in St. Louis, Missouri. But in the past 3 to 4 years, 3 years actually, we've seen thousands of coders in 70 over cities gathering over 1 weekend or 2 weekends, and then working on local projects that have missional outcomes. And I'll send some information soon to share with you, but this is one tangible piece I would love for you to pray about. Would God lead you to be that catalyst, to be that spark, to launch something, maybe starting with a hashtag? Maybe you're saying, no, I'm not a hacker, I'm not a coder, but you are that spark. Right in the first session, I've explained to you, I'm not a technologist myself, but God, as He would have it, had me play a part in helping launch this movement. So it's not about what your abilities are, but your availability. So something for you to pray about. So this is basically at the heart of it, asking God to help us use our talents. Whether you do, you code, whether you design, whether you plan, all kinds of talents can be used for God in the digital space. And again, for His glory. Okay, and I'll end off with this slide. Right, in case we are always, we've talked quite a lot about digital things or technology, and different times we've touched on that. But I remember last year being part of Indigitous Nairobi conference, and this lady, the top tweet, put this out right near the end of the conference. And when I read it, my heart just kind of leapt, when she says, God is raising a digital army, and I'm part of it. Hashtag Indigitous, hashtag on it, etc. And another girl said, I'm called to win more souls for Christ, hashtag Indigitous. And when I read it, the reason why it just made my heart leap was because they got it. They got it. It's a vision that has been birthed in their heart. And I know it has for you as well. God has raised up this digital army. You guys, you're now part of it. And now you are taking one more step, and God will lead you and will shape you to think about how that step looks like in the context of others with you. So I just want to leave you with that and ask you to also consider on Slack as we wrap up. What's going to happen is that we'll receive one more email, all right? We will not have any more calls. Everybody says go, oh, maybe relieved. Right? Because you've been staying up in the evenings or waking up early. Nicholas, always in the office, but still kind of jumping in. And we're so glad that you're able to do this. But we have one more email, and with a couple of things that we would love for you to participate. One is a survey. We felt a strong push for us to consider doing this again, and maybe not wait a year for it. And if you give us your honest feedback, what meant the most to you? What did you learn? Which elements were the most helpful? This would be so precious to Ali, Nick, Doug, and the rest of the mentors, right? So this is something I want to strongly encourage you to fill up. And then, as mentioned, a few of those action steps that you can prayerfully consider. A meetup, a hashtag in October, and by the way, all of this, we have resources to guide you. And we even have coaching calls to get you there. So not to worry. One final thing is, as a big homework for you, is begin to think about what did you capture and what did you learn for Indigitous Steps. And we want you to share it, just one key lesson or takeaway and what you're going to do about it on Slack. right? So you may say, oh, session 3 about user or, reaching out to Gen Z was really impactful. I've been thinking about this and I want to press into working with our youth at church, something like that, or I've been really convicted, about something and I want to trust God to step up to lead hashtag this end of the year. And what it does is that, again, it encourages us as a community. We learn and we spur each other on toward love and good deeds. So I think that's it. I just want to leave you with this. Share with somebody what you learn, because that's the way that you also continue to grow and process. And it encourages us all and to press on. I'm really, really thankful that you've made time to be part of this program. And on behalf of the rest of the design team and the mentors, I want to congratulate you for making it this far, right? The Slack channel will remain open for a while. Kingdom Builders is a larger community. It is a big, huge swimming pool. So, but there are lots and lots of talents and people to connect there as well with many other channels. So feel free to explore. But this channel with some of the folks that you met, and you can feel free to continue to ping each other. I've heard that some of you have already connected offline in different ways. So keep doing that, reach out to one another and encourage each other. Right, so goodbye. Thank you again for being part of Indigitous STEPS.